looks very similar to Kamala Harris, to be perfectly honest with you.
Carolina, the votes are being tallied, and we already have at least one winner called by the Associated Press, Darcy.
That's right, JR. The Associated Press has called the race for Governor Henry McMaster. If he defeats his Democratic opponent in November, that would make him the longest serving governor in the state of South Carolina. So you can see with 2.5% of the state reporting the governor with 85% of the vote. Again, polls closed about an hour ago. It is still very early, and here's why it's important that I stress to you that it's very early, because on the Democratic side of this ticket for governor, again with only 2% of the votes in across the state, you can see that the numbers are starting to come in. Joe Cunningham, the former U.S. Senator from the Low Country, now with 60% of the vote. McLeod, current senator here in South Carolina, coming in with 26%, followed by Carlton Boyd, William Williams, and Calvin McMillan, some relatively unknown folks new to politics in South Carolina. These are who all of the political experts were expecting to be the front runners in this race. I'm going to click around just a little bit so you guys get a better idea of how this map works. So you're looking at Joe Cunningham, and if you look behind him, there's kind of a lighter shade of blue. These are all the areas, these lighter shades of blue, that Cunningham is doing well in. For McLeod, the darker shade of blue shows the areas where she is performing well across South Carolina. We would expect as we get closer to the Low Country that we will see more in the way of support for Joe Cunningham, and in the Midlands we're expecting to see more in the area of support for McLeod. So this is your governor's race on the Democratic ticket. Now let's move over to another race that's got a lot of people talking. Education superintendent Molly Spearman announcing earlier this year that she was not running for re-election, which put a lot of people in the race on the Republican side of the ticket. In case you didn't know, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candidates on the Republican end of the ticket. Again, a little more than 2% of the state reporting. And at this point, it looks like Kathy Manis is doing well. Alan Weaver coming in second. Let's look at the Democratic side of this primary today. Lisa Ellis from SC for Education, a longtime educator, leading right now. Again, the numbers are slowly coming in. Polls closing about an hour ago. Orangeburg Representative Jerry Govan coming in second, again with these early results, followed by Gary Burgess, who was Spartanburg superintendent. So these are the numbers on the Democratic ticket for Superintendent of Education. Now, here are some races that we think that the Associated Press will call pretty soon. As you can see, longtime Ag Commissioner Hugh Weathers doing well against Bill Bledsoe and Bob Rozier. There's nobody on the Democratic side of this ticket, so if Hugh Weathers wins tonight, then he becomes the GOP candidate and likely the winner of this seat again. Moving over to the U.S. Senate, this is also something that a lot of people are going to be watching very closely on this Democratic ticket. Again, 2.5% of the state reporting. Crystal Matthews, representing the Low Country, coming in now, leading with 40.6% of the vote. Again, if you look at the colors, then you can see where these folks are doing well. Angela Jeter doing very well in the upstate. And then for Catherine Bruce, it appears that she is doing better in the PD area. So again, U.S. Senate Democratic primary, another race, a big ticket item on the ballot. Let's go down to the House race. All right, so this is going to be a little bit of a dogfight. JR and I have been talking about this, whether this is going to play out in favor of former President Donald Trump. Nancy Mace appears to be doing very well. Katie Arrington putting her hat in the ring again, even after losing the race to former U.S. Congressman who is now running on the governor's ticket, Joe Cunningham. Let me go back so I don't confuse anybody. So here we are, Katie Arrington again. Nancy Mace has been endorsed by former Governor Nikki Haley. Katie Arrington receiving the endorsement of former President Donald Trump, and Lynn Loomis, a relatively new candidate when it comes to looking at politics on the Republican side of the ticket. So again, this is going to be a very interesting race as we go throughout the evening, but we're going to also look at District 6. Again, most people think of District 6, they immediately think of 6th District Congressman Jim Clyburn, but there are 2 candidates that are running on the Republican ticket, and as you can see for yourself, with 3% reporting across the state, Duke Buckner is doing very well. Again, as I mentioned just a moment ago, when you think of the 6th District, people think of James Clyburn, and he is doing well tonight. Very early, though, 3% of votes coming in. So, JR, I'm going to send it back over to you because I know our reporters are out across much of the Midlands keeping up with the key races.
That's right, and the big race, of course, is that for governor. That's one of the biggest races of the night. Team coverage of the hotly contested race. Kaylin Hagwood is at Governor McMaster's victory party in West Columbia, where, again, he won that Republican nomination a short time ago. Kaylin?
That is right, JR. A lot of excitement here at the McMaster camp as he was projected to be the winner of this race. Now, there's still a long way to go before he gets that final vote there in November, but still a lot of excitement here to let you guys know, in addition to a lot of media that is here to document this moment. The First Lady just walked in. Also, the Department of Corrections Director Brian Sterling is here, as well as Drew McKissick, the GOP, who leads the GOP here in South Carolina. He has arrived. A little bit of history about our governor. He has served for over 40 years as a state and federal prosecutor. He was a U.S. attorney as well as a state attorney general here in South Carolina, and he had his first full term elected in 2018, hoping to continue that going forward. And if he is elected, he says he hopes to strengthen election security as well as make some other improvements around the state. But we will hear from the governor here shortly. We're told that he should be arriving soon or coming out soon. Again, the First Lady has just come out just moments ago, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot of celebration and looking toward the future here at the McMaster camp. JR?
Kaylin Hagwood, thank you so very much.
Our team coverage is going to continue now in the Low Country. That's where we find News 19's Rachel Ripp. She is with Joe Cunningham and his supporters as they are continuing to wait for those results to come in.
It's a little bit hard to hear. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of music playing, and the crowd has definitely picked up here. We are at the Music Farm in downtown Charleston. This is for Joe Cunningham's election night party. Now, he is a South Carolina Democratic gubernatorial candidate, and right now on scvotes.gov, we are seeing him leading with 60% of the vote. He has about 14,300 votes that have come in so far for him, and followed closely behind him, well, not closely behind him, but with 27% of the vote right now is McLeod. Now, all of this atmosphere is, I'm guessing, going to just get more heightened over the course of the next few hours, where we get more of those primary results coming in here in downtown Charleston. So, reporting live now, I'm going to send it back to you guys, and we'll have more coming up soon.
All right, Rachel Ripp, thank you so much. Our Peyton Lewis is with another Democratic hopeful tonight, Mia McLeod, the Richland senator who is hoping to become the Democratic nominee tonight. Peyton?
Yes, that's right, JR. We're here at Mia McLeod's party. There's a bit of a light crowd going on right now. Not a ton of people here. Mia herself is not here yet, but we were just here in the same building, same location just a few months ago when she signed the documents to run for governor, and she's hosting the party in the exact same place as she was just in March, I believe. And she's been a senator in the state since 2017, and she announced her run last June. And it's, a historic run as well. She is the first black woman in the state of South Carolina to run for governor, but tonight she has 27% of the votes. Like I said, she's not here in the building yet, but we're hoping to hear from her very soon about this race and what it's been like for her for the past few months running for governor against candidates like Henry McMaster throughout this entire race. And we'll have more continued updates throughout the night on the governor's race for you right here on WLTX. Stay tuned with us. Back to you, JR.
All right, Peyton, thank you so much. JR is standing by now in Studio B with our political experts to talk more about the races. JR.
All right, Darcy, thank you so much. Yeah, Jim Felder, our Democratic strategist tonight, Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist. We mentioned this on one of our evening broadcasts tonight. Low voter turnout. Some areas of the state seeing single-digit voter turnout today, others seeing slightly better than that. Jim, what do you make of such a low voter turnout for a primary in South Carolina?
First of all, the state Senate is not up for re-election this year, and only, 41 contested House races. And so it didn't generate a lot of interest with local folk. The other thing was that they just didn't see enough advertising, they're saying, didn't hear enough about the races early on, and I indicate to them, well, it's not a presidential election year, so you're not going to see all the advertising, the billboards and all the ads and stuff. But that certainly made the turnout lower than it would normally.
JR, I think the other part about it is the fact that when you have such a strong Republican base right now, and the challengers that the constitutional officers, we're talking the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, they did not consider their opponents in the Republican primary to be that strong. And so it was really boiling down to the fact that, they didn't have to spend a whole lot of money right now, build up the coffers, don't spend a lot of money because it's going to get expensive come the general election.
All right, I believe Governor McMaster getting ready to speak, or Lieutenant Governor speaking? Let's listen in. Lieutenant Governor speaking right now. Let's listen in.
Family. That is exactly the opposite of what we're doing here in South Carolina, making sure we have a great environment for our businesses. As a business owner myself, South Carolina is a pro-business state, and we're looking to keep it that way. We're proud of Governor McMaster, what he did tonight, what he's been doing, and what he's going to do in the next 4 years. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you the most principled governor in America, Governor Henry McMaster.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for coming out. I'm Peggy's husband, Max co-owner. I do want to thank you all for being here. We got a lot of work to do, and if things go the way we're expecting, the way we're hoping, we'll have 4 good years to get a lot more things done. We've made a lot of progress in the last several years. We've got a long way to go, but we're going to get it done. And South Carolina is on the charted course now to be at the top of the world, the best state, best place in the whole country to live, work, and raise a family. And I'm honored at the trust and confidence that the people have placed in me as their governor. And Peggy and I want to thank everybody for their support tonight and in November. Everywhere we look, South Carolina is growing. From the mountains to the sea, our economy is booming. More and more people are visiting our state. You see them all over. The parks are full, and many are deciding to stay for good, including a lot of our military people. I just recently got a letter from a commander of a base in another state. Said everybody there is talking about coming to South Carolina. Employers are creating new jobs. Entrepreneurs are opening new businesses, and companies are deciding to relocate here. South Carolina state government is in the best physical shape we've ever been in. We have the largest budget surplus, the largest rainy day reserve fund, and the lowest debt ever in the history of our state. That's because in South Carolina we're doing it right. We believe in family, we believe in God, we aren't afraid to say so. We believe in the right to work, we believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and we will fight to protect them. Last year, we broke over 10 years worth of records for new job recruitment and capital investment in our state. We've cut taxes on our small businesses, and we've returned money back to the taxpayers. And in the next few days, I will sign into law the largest income tax cut in the history of our state. I'll say that again, the largest income tax cut in the history of our state. In addition to cutting taxes, we're going to give back $1 billion in an income tax rebate. That's a first as well. Putting your money back into your pockets where it belongs. You're the ones that earned it, you're the ones that ought to keep it. And keeping our state competitive for jobs and investments in the future. How did this happen? I promise you, as you know, it was no accident. One reason was, unlike most of the rest of the country, much of the country, we never closed during COVID. I had people from other states call and say, when are you going to announce that you're opening back up? I said, I can't do it. Why not? It's impossible. Why is it impossible? I said, because we never closed. So we're not going to announce we're opening back up. We are open. We never did have a stay-at-home order. The people responded. We used common sense. We never told South Carolinians that their jobs were not essential, not important, and we never closed churches as they did in some other places. We fought to keep our classrooms open 5 days a week so children could receive in-person instruction and their parents could go to work, and that worked. While some big city mayors and blue state governors were defunding the police, we're funding our police. We're giving them raises. We're raising the pay and providing more resources to our troopers, SLED agents, parole officers, correction officers, game wardens, and peace officers, and we're going to keep on doing that. And also, we voted last year to put a school resource officer in every school, and we're working to see that that's accomplished 100%, and that means an armed law enforcement officer in every school, in every county, all day, every day in South Carolina to protect the teachers and to protect our most valuable asset, that is the children and what they are learning. We outlawed sanctuary cities and sent the National Guard troops to the southern border. I was pleased to go down there and see them. They were doing their jobs and representing us well. And we're going to stop the revolving door of criminals getting out on bail just so they can go commit another crime. We're going to stop that revolving door. In South Carolina, we're proud of our pro-life and pro-family policies. When I issued the executive order to prevent taxpayer dollars from going to abortion providers like Planned Parenthood, the Biden administration sued to stop me. When I signed our heartbeat bill into law, the Biden administration did what? Sued to overturn it. And when we stepped in to protect our faith-based foster care providers like Miracle Hill, the Biden administration sued. And we sued the Biden administration on their mandates, their vaccine mandates, and guess what? We won, because it's not in the Constitution for the federal government to be issuing those mandates. I'm confident in the very near future the U.S. Supreme Court will stand with South Carolina and other pro-life family states in protecting the most precious of all rights, the right to life. We unleash the free market in public education with choice and competition. Parents with 4-year-old children who live in lower-income households will now enroll their child at the public, private, or for-profit full-day kindergarten provider that best suits their child's educational needs. That is choice in education. Soon I will sign into law a bill that creates the state's very first education savings account, giving parents additional options for their child's education. We are reforming how the state funds public education. We have 29 different funding streams that flow in from the state to the local school districts, 29. It's confusing and impossible to determine how much of that funding actually makes it into the classroom. So we're fixing that. Funding should follow the child into the classroom, and every parent will now know how every school district spends every single dollar. Teacher pay. Teacher pay is on the rise in South Carolina. When I took office, the minimum starting salary for a new teacher was $30,000 a year. Currently, we're at $36,000. That's not enough. Next week, when I approve the state budget, the new minimum starting salary for a teacher in South Carolina will be $40,000, and that is just the beginning. Our state's booming economy has created 100,000 open jobs right now. in high demand, skilled trades and professions. Employers are struggling to find people. Working with the South Carolina Technical College system, we created special scholarships at our 16 technical colleges. What for? So residents can get the degree or the credentials they need to fill one of those open jobs. We're the only state in the country that has such a program. To date, over 6,000 South Carolinians have been retained and employed, and we plan to keep those scholarships going until all of those jobs are filled. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make big, bold, and transformative investments that will bring prosperity and happiness to our people for generations to come. We know the competition for jobs and investment is fierce, both nationally and globally, and particularly here in the Southeast. We must win this competition. This means we must do a number of things. We must invest in widening our interstates. We must expedite and accelerate the start and completion of projects designed to relieve traffic congestion, to replace bridges, and to repave and resurface secondary roads. And we must invest in infrastructure, invest in water and sewer, and broadband access, especially in rural South Carolina. I believe that ensuring prosperity for generations of South Carolinians to come requires that we build the workforce, the infrastructure, the intellectual capital, the environmental assets, and the quality of life necessary for us to compete and win in South Carolina. And when I say compete and win, I mean all of our people, all of our people. South Carolina is booming, and we want it to boom for all of our people. So let us continue to work together. Let us continue winning. I believe in South Carolina. You believe in South Carolina. And we believe in America. And I believe in each and every South Carolinian. And I know that the best is come. The best is to come. We have a bright future, unlike we have seen in many, many years. It is clear that one of the adversaries we have is the unfounded projects and attitudes of the national government. Things are going wild in Washington. The southern border, the inflation, the prices, the policies of our national government are not positive for our people. But in South Carolina, we're doing things right. We're doing things right. We are an example for the rest of the country. And Peggy and I and Pamela and David are enormously proud of our people and enormously hopeful, and know we are certain that the best is yet to come for South Carolina, and we look forward to working with all the people, everybody out there. And I want to thank you again for this great victory tonight, and we're looking for one more.
One more.
We're looking for one more, and it's coming. Thank you.
7-6.
All right, he called himself Peggy's husband, Henry McMaster, winning the Republican nomination for governor tonight. On to November now, and who's he going to face? We'll find out perhaps later tonight or perhaps in 2 weeks. More on that in a moment. But Dave, any surprises here? An early victory speech from the incumbent governor. He talked about 10, 12 minutes tonight, and he talked about all the great things he says that are happening in South Carolina.
Yeah, Santa Claus came early for Henry McMaster tonight. It was a great, easy night for him. Trucker Bob, Harrison Musselwhite, did not really put up any level of a real fight here in this particular case, running against Governor McMaster. Nobody was surprised by this, and I think when it's all said and done, this is a time where he is now going to start shifting gears, taking a look at who he is going to be running against, most likely Joe Cunningham, and that's going to be a very interesting conversation that starts taking place in the political sphere in South Carolina with the two of them.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, Jim. Is it going to be Cunningham, or could it be Mia McLeod, or will we not know for a couple of weeks?
We may not know for a couple of weeks. I think it's going to be a runoff between Mia and Joe. The turnout's been low today, but still you had 3 other candidates in the race who can siphon off some of the votes, so we may not know tonight.
All right, and the Associated Press calling the race for Secretary of State tonight, Mark Hammond, with no Democratic opposition, so he will face no one in November, and he will likely be reelected once again. and 6th District Congressman Jim Clyburn also winning the Democratic nomination tonight as well for the November election. All right, that is going to do it for now. But we'll be back throughout the evening here on WLTX.com and on other social media platforms with more updates. A reminder, we have our teams out and about all across the Midlands and down in the low country of South Carolina. We'll have continuous updates throughout the evening. We'll see you again later tonight.
Thank you for watching News 19. Did you see a story you loved? Download WLTX on your Roku or Amazon Fire device and watch it again right now.
we got a lot of work to do. And if things go the way we're expecting, the way we're hoping, we'll have 4 good years to get a lot more things done. We've made a lot of progress in the last several years. We've got a long way to go.
That is South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster. He has won his party's nomination for a second full term. Now, if he wins the general election in November and completes that term, he will become the longest serving governor in the state's history. It is 9 o'clock on primary night here in South Carolina. I'm Darcy Strickland. J.R. Barry standing by with more numbers.
That's right. We're over here at the big board. Let's take a look at what's going on. You mentioned that Governor McMaster wins that GOP nomination. 84% of the vote right now, with 36% of the precincts tallied in South Carolina. Musselwhite with 16%. Again, long ways to go, but the AP has already called the race for the incumbent governor. When you go to the Democrat side, somewhat of a surprise here. 36% of the precincts reporting right now. Former Congressman Joe Cunningham with 56% of the vote. Mia McLeod, the local representative here in Richland County, with a little more than 30% of the vote. And the other candidates not a factor in this. As we heard from our insider Jim Felder earlier tonight, he thinks that when all is said and done tonight, when the dust is settled, this could be headed to a runoff between Cunningham and Mia McLeod. Right now, if the vote ended right now, if the count ended at this moment, Cunningham would be the Democrat nominee and he would face Henry McMaster in November. All right, moving on to some other races of note. The State Attorney General's race, Alan Wilson, no surprise there. The incumbent wins the Republican nomination. Secretary of State Mark Hammond, who first won office in 2002, 77% of the vote right now. He has secured the GOP nomination for November. In the race for Education, Superintendent Kathy Maness with 33, almost 34% of the vote. Ellen Weaver with 22%. It looks like that this possibly could be headed to a runoff between these two candidates. Again, a long ways to go. A little less than 35% of the precincts reporting. On the Democrat side now, in the race for Education Superintendent, Lisa Ellis with nearly 48% of the vote so far, and Gary Burgess with 31%. Orangeburg lawmaker Jerry Govan in third place at the moment with 21%. This number is not correct right here, but a number of precincts have reported already Lisa Ellis, the leading vote getter in that race. In the race for the Ag Commissioner, incumbent Hugh Weathers is on his way to another term in office as he wins the Republican nomination. There is no Democrat opposition. In the race for U.S. Senate, Republican Tim Scott is going to be running in November. If he is reelected in November, he says that will be his final 6-year term as U.S. Senator in South Carolina. Who would he face in November, however? Right now, your guess is as good as mine. It is a toss-up between the three candidates. 41% of the precincts reporting across the state. Matthews, Bruce, and Jeter, they're basically in a tie right now. 28,000, 28,000, 26,000 votes between the three. This has been nip and tuck all night. We expect it to stay that way through the evening. All right, a couple of races that a lot of people are watching, and that is the congressional districts. In District 1, the candidate who is backed by former President Donald Trump, Katie Arrington, right now about 19% of the precincts reporting. Arrington with 43% of the vote. Nancy Mace, the incumbent who ousted Joe Cunningham 2 years ago, with almost 55% of the vote. She had the backing of former Governor Nikki Haley. Again, Arrington the backing of former President Donald Trump. Again, a long ways to go with this race. This margin between Mace and Arrington has slimmed as the night has gone on. It was a much bigger lead earlier this evening, so we'll be watching that race as well. Now, the 7th congressional district. Tom Rice, as you recall, voted to impeach President Trump. 25% of the vote for him. 47% for the Trump-backed candidate Russell Fry tonight. 41.5% of all precincts reporting. This right now, if it ended tonight, would be a runoff between the Trump-backed candidate Russell Fry and the incumbent Tom Rice. When you go to the 6th district, let's see if we can do that right now. There you go. The incumbent, the longtime congressman in the 6th district, Jim Clyburn, going to be the nominee again in November, and he will face GOP opposition Again, that is not correct. Let's see if we can get that. All right, so that's the latest numbers that we have on the big races that we're following right now. We're going to send things back over to Darcy, who has more team coverage.
That's right, JR. We're heading down to the Low Country. That's where we find News 19's Rachel Ripp. She is with Joe Cunningham's team as they're continuing to watch those numbers come in. Rachel, what are you seeing now?
Good evening, JR and Darcy. It's exciting here, and it's getting louder by the minute and by the hour as it goes by on this South Carolina primary election night. Now, about an hour ago is when Joe Cunningham made his first appearance here at the Music Farm in downtown Charleston. He was meeting with voters, young and old, shaking their hands. He was, talking to them, having conversations with them, giving them hugs. And just about 10 minutes ago, he actually made his first appearance on stage. He was introducing Dr. Annie Andrews, a Democratic candidate for South Carolina's 1st congressional district. Now, I caught up with some voters here about why they voted for Cunningham. Here's what one of them had to say.
I know the sincerity that a lot of them have and a lot of them are missing. And Joe is exactly who you see. And that, I think, is something that is worth someone voted for.
We're going to make America a place where, everyone gets a
Now, as for the results of what's showing right now, Joe Cunningham is in the lead. This is from scvotes.org. There have been about 67,000 votes that have come in so far, and about 38,000 of those votes are for Cunningham. That's about 56.47% of the vote. Following behind him is Mia McLeod with 30% of the vote. We'll keep you up to date with all of those results this primary election night. For now, reporting in downtown Charleston, I'm Rachel Ripp, News 19, WLTX.
Rachel, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right, our Peyton Lewis is with another Democratic gubernatorial hopeful tonight. Richland lawmaker Mia McLeod's campaign gathering here in Columbia. Peyton?
Hey JR, so tonight we're here at Mia McLeod's watch party. She just walked through the doors here, greeting people, shaking hands, and saying hello to people who voted for her in this race. We're going to hear from her in just a few minutes. We've got a podium set up here, some balloons as well, with the city as the backdrop. This was a very tight race, as JR was saying before. She has around 31% of the votes right now. And we're seeing, lots of voters out here for her party that are supporting her. And we're just continuing to watch tonight as she greets people and comes in right now. We're interested to hear what she has to say here in a few minutes, but we'll keep you updated on this race continuing that might go into a runoff and what Mia McLeod has to say about what it's been like in this race over the past few months. Back to you, JR.
All right, Peyton, thank you so very much. And as these results continue to come in this evening, Darcy has made her way into our studio. She's sitting down with our political insiders right now to look at the races so far tonight. Darcy?
JR, thank you so much. I can't think of two people who know more about South Carolina politics than the two of you. So thank you so much for spending your evening with us.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, so Dave, we were talking in the newsroom a little bit earlier, Mr. Felder. You weren't privy to this conversation, but I know you're going to be able to jump in. The numbers, when we talk about how different the State House can look coming up are astounding.
Yeah, we tell people when we do the Insider Hunt, we talk to folks, you at home understand that we are looking at this from the standpoint that there are 124 members of the South Carolina House. Mm-hmm. Being that that's the case, there are 41 contested races on the books tonight. That is going to be a significant change. You're looking right now at 31 of those are folks with opposition. So incumbents that are facing opposition, 1 out of 4 members in the South Carolina House is facing primary opposition. Mm-hmm. That is a big tell statement. And you've got some key races right now in Spartanburg and Anderson that folks are looking at right now going, we may actually lose these seats. And then you've got 7 open seats, 6 Republicans and 1 Democrat, as well as some of those combined seats, because when we did redistricting a while back, you'll recall, you had seats like Wendy Brawley and Jermaine Johnson. Right. That seat was combined. Caesar McKnight and Roger Kirby was also combined. And Sandy McGarry lost her seat altogether. That seat got dissolved and moved to the PD. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of things that are going to be changing, and that's going to be a changing face of the South Carolina House of Representatives, because you're going to have at least, the guesstimate right now is 20% of those members, if not 25, are going to be brand new to the State House.
Well, you talk about that kind of change. What does that mean to the average person watching us tonight?
Right now, they're confused.
Yeah.
They're really confused. In addition to that, you're going to have a new speaker in the House.
Exactly.
So it's kind of confusing for the general public out there who does not follow this on a day-to-day basis as we do. So what to look at next year in the General Assembly, it's going to be all new faces there. And they're going to be wandering around where to go and what to do and all that. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people there who won't know where the restrooms are.
This is very, very true.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of folks who are already trying to coalesce themselves into some new groups to figure out how they're going to play the game of politics inside the State House, especially with Merle Smith as the new Speaker. You've got Davy Hyde, who's going to be the new chair, the new head of the Republican majority. He looks like he's going to be able to pull out his win in Pickens County, but there are going to be some folks who are not going to be there next year. It is expected that Representative Rita Allison in Spartanburg will end up not going to be winning. Brian White, who used to be the House Ways and Means chair in Anderson County, he's most likely not going to be returning. There's several others, and it is going to be a very interesting time to see how the Republican primary vote changes the face of politics in South Carolina at the state level.
That was my next question, Mr. Felder. What does this change mean for voters in South Carolina? Does it mean that people are tired of the old, you know? And I say that knowing that if Governor McMaster wins in November and completes his term, he will be the longest serving governor in the state of South Carolina. Are people looking for new faces, or are they just talking about looking for new?
They are looking for new faces. They look at Henry McMaster. Well, he's been there a long time. Well, maybe he can't run again, maybe. But new faces are arriving, and they're going to be looking at those new faces and expecting different things from the State House. So Henry may be really pushed with this new breed coming in, this new class of legislators coming in this time to do some things that he may not want to do.
But can you really get change on the state level of those big state elected offices like governor and like Mark Hammond, who has held that seat as Secretary of State for 20 years now? 20 plus if he wins in November.
It's going to be
Is there a real change there?
Well, the real change, because we are a legislatively driven state, Darcy, and that's the thing to keep in mind. A governor does not have the power that the president has, but he does have the power of the bully pulpit. So guidance and direction that he takes, ways that he turns around and uses that power to get things moving is going to be an important step about what Henry McMaster does, if he does win, does in that last 4 years that he'll be serving our state. And that's going to be a real test of wills between the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. That's a trifecta that oftentimes does not balance itself out.
What about voter turnout? Why was it so low today?
I am just disappointed. I am disappointed with the turnout. Many reasons. It's not a presidential election year. And the other thing is people really not knowing who to vote for, who their candidates are. And I've been pushing and pushing that we need to do a better job of coming up with sample ballots so we know who we are voting for in our neighborhood. Somehow we got to get back to what we used to do. The newspapers just gave you great coverage, and even the TV and the radio station would be talking about the candidates. But now they just let the candidates, those who want to be out there running, do the talking, and they don't give any information and education about how the process. So we need to do more about process, about informing voters who are running.
It almost seems like, Dave, the person who can pay for their name to be out there is the person who has their name out there.
It really does boil down to that. And we saw that in the race with Jamie Harrison and Lindsey Graham. I mean, we spent $250 million was spent in that race alone. And Darcy, I think when you begin to look at it, it's going to be one of two things. Either the person who spends more money or the person who spends more money on shoe leather because they've actually gotten out there and knocked on the doors. Because so much of what you see in a state house race like this, keep in mind, we're talking 13%, maybe 15% voter turnout. Okay, out of 3.3 million registered voters in South Carolina, you're talking roughly 400,000 people that are showing up. Well, you take a state house race. A state house race, you may only need 1,500 votes to win.
That is true.
And if you do the math on that during the campaign season, you're knocking on 100 doors a day, and you just keep doing that and you keep working the shoe leather, you can turn around and you can unseat an incumbent. It is not that hard to do.
It'll be interesting to see how the numbers turn out at the end of the night. If they're panning out like they are now, it sounds like 85% of the people who are registered to vote in South Carolina did not.
I am looking at a race we hadn't talked about. It's a local race.
Yes, sir.
Chris Hart in Pride. You know, Chris beat Joe Brown years ago by knocking on doors. You know, Joe was surprised.
Right. I remember that race.
Remember that
Yes.
race. Now Pride is out there knocking on doors, and look, I don't know what's going to happen in that race.
All right.
Same thing. You have the same thing in Lexington County, where you've got Micah Caskey and Melanie Shull.
Right.
It's going to be a neck and neck race because it was who's going to be who has knocked on more doors and done those sorts of things that need to be done. And that's the nature of South Carolina politics, folks, and you understand that.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to give you a chance to get some more sweet tea.
Always sounds like a good idea in South
More
Carolina
sweet
politics.
tea. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back on air online at 10 o'clock.
Thank you for watching News 19. Did you see a story you loved? Download WLTX on your Roku or Amazon Fire device and watch it again.
I'm here tonight with all of you just to say thank you. Thank you. This has been, oh my gosh, an amazing journey for not just our team, but for all of South Carolina. I could not be more proud tonight than I am of my team, who are now my family, my friends, all of you who have prayed for and with us, who have stood for and with us as we traveled around the state talking to everyday people and putting working people at the top of our list of priorities in this state. We don't know what the results will be for tonight's race, but what I do know is that we ran one hell of a race. And I know I speak for our entire team when I say we walk by faith and not by sight. And so we will continue, the work continues, regardless of the outcome. I've always said that. The work continues because South Carolinians are struggling. And we do need real change in this state. We need real change for South Carolinians. When I go to rural communities and see cars wrapped around buildings 3 and 4 times, where people are waiting for non-perishable grocery items, to hear this governor say that South Carolina's economy is thriving and the people of South Carolina are thriving, that's simply not true. I am proud of the work that we did, that we've done, not just this past year, but definitely over the last year. Our journey has been one that has excited and energized people across South Carolina like nothing ever has in modern history. We made history. We've made history. And South Carolina will be better because of it. But there's still so much work to do. And so we are going to remain committed to that work. In fact, I will be back in session on tomorrow because my work never stops. My work for the people of South Carolina and the people of Senate District 22 never stops. And so I want to personally thank every member of my team right now. Every member of my team believes in a better, stronger South Carolina. Every member of my team believes in the possibility in a state, to have a state where all of us can thrive, where all of us matter. And that matters to all South Carolinians. And so, regardless of the outcome tonight, we know that South Carolina will be better. South Carolina will be stronger because we are in this race, because we ran a race that was about the people, all of the people of South Carolina. So there are no, I don't want anybody to even think that we are not proud, we are not excited. There is certainly so much more work to be done, but we know that God is not through. And we don't know what his plan is, but we know that he is in control. And we are moving forward in faith, trusting and believing that together we are stronger, and together we will change this state. I don't have to be governor to change the state, although I may be governor and change this state. But one thing is certain, we have a committed team of people, not just my team, not just my campaign team, but people across South Carolina who believe in our vision, who believe that South Carolina can be so much better, so much brighter for all of us. And so I want to thank my family for just believing in me and supporting me through all of this. My sons mean everything. They represent the future of our state. Our interns represent the future of our state. Our young people that are leaving our state in droves and have been for decades. They are the future of our state. They are the reason that I am running. And so tonight, we are going to just pause and wait and see what our next steps will be. And I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight, for joining us, for celebrating, because we have reason to celebrate. We ran a top-notch campaign, and it's been a long journey. Most people don't run for governor or a statewide office for a year. It's grueling, it's very taxing, but it's also humbling, and it's also very sobering to see the plight and the challenges that so many South Carolinians face, and to know that, when we have somebody in this office or in the governor's office who will see and acknowledge the truth of what's really happening in South Carolina, we can change this state. And so I remain committed to that. Thank you all for being here, and we're going to continue to celebrate as we get back to work. Thanks so much.
All right, gubernatorial candidate Mia McLeod, not necessarily a concession speech, as she said she doesn't know how these numbers are going to pan out, but we are getting a closer look at the numbers, specifically here in the Midlands. J.R. Berry standing by now at the big board with a closer look at how these numbers are lining up for McLeod and Cunningham.
There's a reason Mia McLeod's not sounding too optimistic tonight. She's not conceding, as you say, but she's not winning either, especially her home base here in the Midlands. These are the statewide numbers right now. More than 67% of all precincts reporting. Right now, Joe Cunningham with almost 58% of the vote, and it looks like he is going to avoid a runoff and be the Democratic nominee to challenge Henry McMaster in November. Why are we saying that? Well, nothing is 100% certain, but this is why we believe that is going to happen. Mia McLeod is a representative in Richland County. Let's take a look at the Midlands and see how they voted. Here we are in Richland County, her home base. 20% of the precincts reporting Cunningham with almost 58% of the vote, 35% for Mia McLeod. Again, this is her home county. Elsewhere in the Midlands, Sumter County, almost 100% of the precincts reporting she's losing big time to Cunningham there as well. We move over to Lee County, 95%, a loss there for Mia McLeod. And this is all through the Midlands. Kershaw County, 100% of the precincts reporting Cunningham with 56% of the vote. Again, here in the Midlands, Fairfield County, almost 96% reporting Cunningham with nearly 55% of the vote. Over in Lexington County, 66% of the precincts reporting Cunningham with 66% of the vote. So again, she's not winning her home base, Darcy. She's losing here in the Midlands, including her home county of Richland. So again, while it is not official tonight that Joe Cunningham has won the Democratic nomination, it is certainly looking more and more likely that he will be the one facing Governor Henry McMaster come November.
All right, JR. Thank you so much. Again, we've got some big races that we need to talk about, including on the Republican side of the ticket. Governor Henry McMaster has won his party's nomination. He is going to be the GOP candidate on the Republican or on the ticket for governor. If he wins this race in November and completes his term, it would make Henry McMaster the longest serving governor in South Carolina. As JR just mentioned, there is still more time that needs to pass before we know who is for sure the Democratic candidate. But at this point, again, the race being called for Governor McMaster. We're going to check in now with News 19's Rachel Ripp, beginning our team coverage. She is with the Cunningham camp in the Low Country, as I'm sure many people there who are there to support Joe Cunningham are excited to see these numbers roll in. Rachel.
Good evening, JR and Darcy. Now, primary election night is still, those votes are still coming in, and all of that anticipation is building right here in Charleston for Joe Cunningham's primary election night watch party. Now, people here at the Music Farm in downtown Charleston, they're listening to all of this music. You know, we're waiting for all of those votes to come in, like I said, and he was expected to actually give some remarks around 9:30, so about 30 minutes ago, but we haven't seen him up on stage yet, so we're still waiting to hear from Joe Cunningham. We're expecting he might come out once this election is called. Now, as a reminder, Joe Cunningham was formerly a U.S. Congressman from 2019 to 2021. In 2018, he became the first Democrat to be elected to South Carolina's first congressional district in over 40 years. Now, during his 2-year term, he passed 2 bills into law while serving on the House Veterans Affairs and Natural Resources Committees. Now, I'm going to take a look here at what our polls say on scvotes.org. Right now, Joe Cunningham, he does have over 50% of the vote. That's at 56.02%. And that's of, in total, 130,000 votes that have been counted so far. Mia McLeod has 30% of the vote. Now, she actually just spoke, and she wasn't conceding yet. She wasn't giving up yet. She was saying that those votes are still being counted. She's still in this running here. So I am going to go ahead and send it back to you guys. And for now, reporting live in Charleston, Rachel Ripp, News 19, WLTX.
Rachel Ripp with former U.S. Congressman Joe Cunningham, who again is on the Democratic ticket to become the next governor of South Carolina. JR is with our political experts now, the insiders, to talk more about how these numbers are coming in, and specifically, JR, about the low voter turnout and what it really means for today and then November.
And we're going to touch on the race for governor on the Democratic ticket, Darcy, as well. Mia McLeod losing right here in the Midlands this evening. Our Democratic insider tonight, Jim Felder, you have a theory perhaps as to why it unfolded the way it unfolded?
Yes, I do, Joe. That spat with her and Todd Rutherford did not help her at all. Up until that point, she was doing pretty good. But then I started getting phone calls after that situation. The other thing was that I think she targeted an older population who really didn't get out on this election, whereas Joe, on the other hand, really targeted the young folk, and they turned out for him.
In case you missed it, there was a social media confrontation last week between the House Minority Leader, Todd Rutherford, here in Richland County, who is backing Joe Cunningham, and Mia McLeod. Things got pretty heated on Twitter. Back and forth they went.
Yeah.
And it stayed there for all to read. It was just publicized left and right. So again, you think that played a role somewhat in this?
That played a major role in it.
Yeah. All right. So as we look ahead, Dave, if Joe Cunningham goes on to get the nomination, which it appears likely he will tonight, how are Republicans viewing a Joe Cunningham, Henry McMaster matchup in November?
Joe Cunningham has decided that he is going to make this an old versus young race. If you go back to the Democratic debate that took place the other night, he made that abundantly clear. It's going to be new blood versus old blood, and that's going to be how it breaks itself down. You know, Joe Cunningham has an uphill battle because he is in a Republican-dominated state. It is not to say that it can't be a close race. I mean, you look at Nikki Haley versus Vincent Shaheen, round 1 and round 2.
Sure.
And those were very close races. But I think Joe Cunningham has a much different approach than a more mainstream Vincent Shaheen did. And he's going to have to be able to start playing to a middle that Henry McMaster is already talking to when it comes to the political calculus.
Joe Cunningham also making an issue of the gas tax in South Carolina, Jim. He's basically kind of campaigning on that right now, saying South Carolina needs to suspend that gas tax. And with gas prices so high, is that going to appeal to some voters out there?
That is appealing, believe me, Joe. That is appealing. I talk to people all the time, and they say, when is these gas prices going to stop going up? Can somebody do something about it? And if he is targeting that as an issue, that will certainly help him.
What do you think, Jay?
Gas prices in South Carolina, 28 cents is our state's gas tax now. It has steadily gone up since they passed the gas tax bill. Went up for a total of 12 cents, 2 cents a year for 6 years. When you look at that, we're still lower than the majority of other states in the Southeast. We're still lower, and I think as we begin to see what happens to gas prices, 28 cents out of $4.50 is not as significant as 28 cents out of $2.80. And I think that there's going to be a place where they're going to look for, hey, listen, I need some level of relief, but at the same time, you look at our roads right now, and our roads are in the condition they're in because we didn't make the investment years ago.
Sure.
All right, a couple of House races that we talked about earlier this evening that are unfolding as we speak. The 1st Congressional District has tightened tonight between Nancy Mace, the incumbent, who ousted Cunningham a couple of years ago, against Katie Arrington, the Trump-backed candidate. About 6 percentage points separating those two right now. But the bigger story is coming out of the 7th Congressional District. Congressman Tom Rice looks like right now he's going to finish second in that race, which includes Horry County. Russell Fry, the Trump-backed candidate, Dave, right now has 50+% of the vote, right?
I'm watching the ticker as it goes along the bottom, and as those numbers get updated, I think Russell Fry walks away with this one. I think if it does get into a runoff, typically in South Carolina politics, if you get into a runoff, the second place person ends up picking up the votes of some of the other people who were running in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place. But the problem is, the second place person this year is the incumbent.
Yeah.
He has hit his ceiling. Nobody else is going to vote for Tom Rice. So even if it does go to a runoff, Russell Fry will walk away with this one. I expect to see Russell Fry trying to start choosing some carpet and some drape colors in the next few weeks, because he will turn around and walk away with the 7th Congressional District.
I have to agree with that.
Really?
I have to agree with that. Yeah. I'm surprised, but I really thought it would have been a closer race, and it would end up being a runoff between Fry and Rice. But the way it looks here now, that's not going to happen.
Well, it could end up that way, but right now, with 50+% of the vote, that's all you need to avoid that runoff. What does this say again about the lasting power, if you want to call it, of former President Trump in South Carolina?
Well, it looks like he still has some strength here. He still has enough followers here, particularly in that 7th Congressional District over there, that his man got in. On the other hand, let's see what happens in Charleston. It looks like Nancy may pull it out, but it still shows that Trump has some coattails.
Is the Trump factor going to hurt Democrats, though, come November in South Carolina?
No, I don't think it will, because what will happen now, given what's happening now with the January 6th committee and all of that's coming out now, I believe some people beginning to kind of back away from Trump now, when they really see his people talking about what happened during that episode. So things can change between now and November.
All right. We're going to have an update with these guys coming up on News 19 at 11 as well. We hope you'll be tuning in then for more political insight from Dave Wilson and Jim Felder. Darcy, going to send things back to you.
Okay, JR, so essentially what we're going to do is wrap up right now, and then we'll be back on air for News 19 at 11. We encourage you to continue to follow us not only on air but also online like you are right now, and on our News 19 mobile app. We'll be updating the numbers as they roll in tonight. We'll see you again at 11.
Thank you for watching News 19. Did you see a story you loved? Download WLTX on your Roku or Amazon Fire device and watch it again right now.
Thank you all. I couldn't have done it without you. First of all, guys, I'm obviously the not good-looking Cunningham. Genetics is a tricky thing. And my name is Luke Cunningham. I'm Joe's older brother. And first things first, on the way in tonight, seeing all the people that donated their time on his crew and all you guys being here, our father's famous quote said, the most that you can ever ask of somebody is for their time. So we appreciate you guys from the bottom of our heart being here tonight. Thank y'all. And I come from a big family, so they wanted me to just come out here and say something real quick, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to treat you guys as family. So if you guys will give me a minute of your time, I wanted to read something. This is what my little brother sent to only the other brothers in our family and my parents on the day that he filed for governor. And they probably don't want me to share this, but I'm going to share it with you because you guys have given us so much of your time. Family, today is filing day. I will leave in an hour or so and drive to Columbia to file the necessary paperwork for governor. I sat down and wrote Boone a letter that I'll save. I've done this just a handful of times, and it seems relevant. Some good, some bad. It spurred me to share the why with you all, as oftentimes is the most important question. I oftentimes say I'm running to make this future better. Better schools, roads, environment, healthcare, and it's all true. All those things are important, but I'm also doing this for him in another way. And that's to show him that big dreams are worth chasing. Big risk yield big rewards, and you will never know unless you try. The fear of regret outweighs the fear of failure in my mind, and I would rather have fought and failed than never have tried at all. As a Democrat, this race will be an uphill battle. Tough, if not impossible, by some people's standards. But that is not a reason to shirk from any sense of duty or not to try. And the first hurdle and the first biggest accomplishment of this race was achieved tonight. But when the Democratic primary, I give to you, my little brother, the next governor of South Carolina, Mr. Joe Cunningham.
Like when I close my eyes and don't even care if anyone sees me dancing. Like I can fly and don't even think to touch the ground. Like a heartbeat skip, like an open page, like a one-way trip on an aeroplane. It's the way that I feel when I'm with you.
Good evening, South Carolina.
First and foremost, I want to thank my family, my parents, who have had my back every step of the way, my 4 older brothers, who taught me how to take a punch, but more importantly, taught me how to throw a punch. I love you guys. To my son, Boone, who should be very much sound asleep right now, I hope one day you look back on this and it makes you proud. And I hope that you realize that big dreams are worth chasing, and that to remember that if you ever get knocked down, to always, always get back up and keep fighting. To my campaign team, thank you. To Chris Barron of the Spin Doctors. Right? I mean, it means so much that he's here because, to be honest, my brothers would not have come here tonight unless he was here. To Bill Wilson and DJ T Streets, thank y'all so much. Thank you to the Music Farm for hosting us here on Tuesday evening. Appreciate it. To Senator Mia McLeod, thank you for putting yourself forward to run and for the spirited debate on the issues. And even though we were competitors, we're now on the same team. And I look forward to working with you in the months to come as we bring our state out of the past and into the future. And to Carlton Boyd, Calvin McMillan, and Cowboy Williams, thank you for running, and thank you for offering yourself for service to our amazing state. And to even Governor Henry McMaster, congrats on your hard-fought primary victory tonight. But the last and not least, though, the voters, you all. I mean, I cannot express my appreciation for the trust that you've placed in me. And I promise you, I will never, ever let you down. So, it is with great humility and honor that I accept your nomination for governor of the great state of South Carolina. Look, everyone in this room knows me. Everyone here knows me. But for the people watching at home, just allow me to introduce myself. I'm Joe Cunningham. First and foremost, I'm a dad. I'm a proud South Carolinian, an attorney, a former ocean engineer, a huge Spin Doctors fan, and most recently, I had the honor of representing the Low Country in Congress. And look, I ran for Congress in the first place because I was sick of the divisiveness. I was sick of the partisanship and the selfishness. And I saw too many politicians more concerned with keeping their job than doing their job. And almost no one was willing to work across the aisle to get things done. And after we flipped a district that Donald Trump had won by 13 points, we got to work to change Washington and change the way it operated. Our motto was Low Country over Party. And it was more than just a slogan. It was more of our North Star and our guiding principle. And I'm so proud that I had two of my bills make it through a divided Congress and get signed into law by a Republican president. One of those bills to help our veterans. And another one of those bills, yeah, hell yeah, right? Ethan knows what's up. And another one of those called the Holy Grail of Environmental Conservation. Look, I brought the far left and the far right together to pass a bill banning offshore drilling off the coast of South Carolina. We passed a bill to close the Charleston loophole. Another bill to protect voting rights. And so much more. But I also wasn't afraid to buck my own party. I stood up to Democrats and stopped the congressional pay raise. I voted against a budget that increased the debt. And not just no, but hell no to those who wanted to defund the police. I was proud. I was incredibly proud to be ranked one of the most independent and one of the most effective members of Congress. Words that have never been used to describe our current governor. Ever. And look, a couple weeks ago I turned 40. And someone reminded me that I am now officially as old as Henry McMaster's political career. You see, Henry McMaster. Look, Henry McMaster is not just a career politician. He's a forever politician. He was working in the halls of Congress before I was even born. Like, he's run for U.S. Senate. He's run for Attorney General twice. He's run for Lieutenant Governor twice. Governor 3 times. and he was the chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party for over a decade. Henry McMaster is the oldest governor in South Carolina history, and he's running to be the longest serving governor in South Carolina history. But the question is this: does he deserve it? And look, what can we expect? What can we expect from another 4 years under his leadership? And look, while I appreciate his service and his long political career, we've got to be honest. We've got to be honest about his track record. Our schools remain at the bottom of every list. Our roads are ranked literally dead last in our country. We've been ranked the worst state for women and one of the worst states to start a family. Violent crime and murder are at an all-time high. We're losing out on major economic projects because companies, they want to relocate where there are good schools, safe roads, a healthy workforce, and leadership with a vision for the future. And right now, we don't have any of that. And Governor McMaster has shown little interest in attacking these challenges. Instead, he's focused on culture wars and national political fights that do nothing to help our state. He signed the most restrictive abortion ban in America. But now he wants to go even further and ban all abortions with no exceptions for rape, incest, or the life of the mother. He vetoed a bill to fix our roads. And while violent crime is at an all-time high in our state, the governor's solution, it was to allow more people to carry guns in public. And as we know, shootings have skyrocketed this year. He helped kill the medical marijuana bill that would have finally given relief to veterans and people suffering from epilepsy or chronic illness. He opposed my plan to temporarily suspend the gas tax to help offset the rising costs at the pump. And until a court stopped him, he wanted to send your tax dollars to private schools while at the same time underfunding our public schools and refusing to give our teachers a raise. Hey, look, folks, in South Carolina, we fire football coaches after 1 or 2 losing seasons. We do. Henry McMaster is going on 40 straight losing seasons, and he's asking for extension onto his contract. It's time for the people of South Carolina to stand up and say, "You're fired." Because Governor McMaster is the governor of the past, and I'm running to be the governor of the future. Hey, because the future of our state is bright. But only if we look ahead, not behind. And my plans as governor, they're ambitious because I think we have to be. You know, none of what I want to do is radical. It's just simply overdue. Like dramatically raising teacher pay so they are finally treated like the heroes they are. Right? Like legalizing marijuana and sports betting. And then using that revenue to fix our roads and our schools. Like implementing term limits for all politicians. We'll tackle the gun violence epidemic so that everyone can feel safe on the streets of their own communities. We're going to protect our environment, and we're going to turn climate change from a crisis into an economic opportunity to create good paying jobs here in South Carolina.
we can, and we will bring common sense change to South Carolina. And friends, we're going to do it without raising any taxes. Look, in the coming weeks, I'm going to be outlining more of my vision for our state to ensure that, that we don't continue to be left behind by our neighboring states, and to ensure that our best and that our brightest stay in South Carolina to raise their families. And to guarantee that every child in South Carolina has the opportunity at a successful life, no matter where they're born, no matter where they live, or what they look like, or who they love. Folks, look, I'm a different kind of Democrat, and I'm going to be a different kind of governor. Y'all know that. Y'all know that. My fellow South Carolinians, I'm asking you to take a chance on me. And maybe you're a Republican. Maybe you never voted for a Democrat. Maybe you don't vote at all. Maybe you're not even registered. But I want to change that. And this campaign, our campaign, is going to give you something to be excited about. It's going to give you something to be hopeful about. Something to be proud of. I want to give you something to vote for, not just something to vote against. And look, I'm going to be straight up with you. I'm going to be honest. We may not agree on everything. But as former mayor of New York City, Ed Koch, said, if you agree with me on 7 of the 10 things that I say, vote for me. If you agree on 10 out of 10 things I say, go see a psychiatrist. But I can promise you one thing. We are going to agree more than we disagree. Because I'm not interested in the division. I'm not interested in the culture wars and the wedge issues. While Governor McMaster wants to distract, deceive, and divide, I want to unite, inspire, and deliver. South Carolina is an amazing state with incredible people. And this is a state where we have chosen to spend our lives. And we are the custodians of our future. There's nothing stopping us from moving forward and making the necessary change that we all know is required. The question is, this is the question, whether we are able to break out of our partisan corners, treat each other like human beings, and focus on the things that really matter, like our kids. My 4-year-old son, Boone, he's my world. He's everything. And I will work with anyone, anywhere, anytime to build a better future for him and his whole generation. And I know you're the same with your kids. Henry Ford once said, if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. South Carolina, it's time for us to move forward together. To turn the page on the past and write a new chapter for our state. Let's grab that pen together and go make history. Go to joeforsouthcarolina.com. Join our team. Thank you, and may God continue to bless the great state of South Carolina. Thank you all so much for being here.
Basically saying, Darcy, this is shaping up to be old versus new come November in South Carolina.
It appears that Cunningham had a very successful campaign. If you look at the numbers, he did well in the upstate, in the Midlands, and in the Low Country as a former U.S. congressman. I don't think many people were surprised that he was going to do well in the Low Country in District 1. He did very well there as those numbers continue to roll in. But again, It all boils down to November. If Henry McMaster wins in November, it would make him, and completes his term, it would make him the longest serving governor in South Carolina history. Cunningham hopes that that won't happen.
All right, we're going to get ready for our 11 o'clock broadcast. You can watch us on WLTX News 19. Coming up in about 18 minutes from now, we hope to see you then.
nomination for governor of the great state of South Carolina.
Right now on News 19, a celebration in Charleston after Joe Cunningham clinches the Democratic nomination for governor. The latest on all of tonight's races.
Plus, a local school district discusses a pilot program that could make their schools safer.
And before the storms made through the Midlands, temperatures got into the 90s, but tomorrow we're going to get to the 90s and 100s again with possible more storms. We'll talk about it in your forecast on News 19 at 11 starting right now.
We now know who will be advancing to the race in November to be South Carolina's next governor. Current Republican Governor Henry McMaster will be taking on Democratic challenger Joe Cunningham. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us for News 19 at 11. I'm Darcy Strickland.
And I'm J.R. Berry. We start with the Democratic primary for governor, where Joe Cunningham has won his party's nomination.
News 19's Rachel Ripp has been live in Charleston all evening at Cunningham's watch party. She joins us now live with the very latest on the celebration that's likely continuing. Rachel.
Good evening, JR and Darcy. Joe Cunningham is officially the Democratic primary winner for the South Carolina gubernatorial race. Now, energy in here, I have to say, is absolutely electric, and it's built over the last hour or so since he took the stage to announce his victory. There's been dancing, there's been singing, lots of music, as you can hear behind me, and people here in Charleston are very excited to see this win. Now, Cunningham thanked his voters for coming out to the polls, for casting their votes as he took the stage earlier this evening.
You all, I cannot express my appreciation for the trust that you've placed in me. And I promise you, I will never, ever let you down. So, it is with great humility and honor that I accept your nomination for governor of the great state of South Carolina.
Now, following tonight, Joe Cunningham will face Governor McMaster in the general election this November. Reporting live in Charleston, I'm Rachel Ripp, News 19 WLTX.
All right, Rachel, thank you so very much. Yeah, Governor McMaster is celebrating tonight after a big victory tonight over Harrison Musselwhite. This is with almost 87% of the precincts reporting the governor with nearly 83.4% of the vote. Musselwhite with 16.6%. This race was called very early on this evening. McMaster running in November. If he wins in November and serves 4 years, that will give him 10 consecutive years as governor of South Carolina. He would become the longest serving governor in our state's history. Kaylin Hagwood is live at McMaster's watch party. She joins us now with more. Kaylin?
Well, JR, the watch party has really wrapped up for the evening, and honestly, during the day, it wasn't a huge crowd of people, as it was really sort of almost expected that the governor would be able to get this victory today. His speech tonight focusing on the successes of his career so far and what he's hoping to accomplish going forward should he be reelected in November. Of course, thanking voters who came out to be with him and of course asking them to come out again. Now, some of the topics that were discussed tonight included his efforts during the pandemic to keep businesses open, also improving the state's infrastructure and increasing school resource officers. Another topic, the state budget, which is expected to increase teachers' salaries once it's approved.
When I took office, the minimum starting salary for a new teacher was $30,000 a year. Currently, we're at $36,000. That's not enough. Next week, when I approve the state budget, the new minimum starting salary for a teacher in South Carolina will be $40,000, and that is just the beginning. We are certain that the best is yet to come for South Carolina, and we look forward to working with all the people, everybody out there.
Well, the governor added that if he is reelected, he will focus on cutting taxes and strengthening election security as well as fighting against abortion. Reporting here in West Columbia, Kaylin Hagwood, News 19 WLTX.
All right, Kaylin, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. So let's talk about the Democratic side of the ticket. We've already told you all, and it's already been announced that Joe Cunningham is now the Democratic candidate for South Carolina on that ticket for governor. Let's look closer, though, at how Mia McLeod handled this race today. And we're going to look specifically at the counties in the Midlands. Now, as we click on each of our 11 Midlands counties, you'll see how McLeod fared. Joe Cunningham doing very well across the Midlands in the upstate and along the low country. But we'll click through these Midlands counties. In Newberry County, with 100% of the precincts reporting Joe Cunningham coming out with 46% of the vote. As we move over to Lexington County, you can see 65% there, and Richland County, 57% there. We'll move down to Orangeburg County, where Joe Cunningham received 61% of the vote. Checking out Calhoun County, 59% to McLeod's 26%. Over in Sumter County, 55% to McLeod's 29%. Again, other candidates in this race, these were the two candidates who had the most name recognition, but candidates like Carlton Boyd, Calvin McMillan, and William Williams also doing well for what can be expected for them to be so early in politics, or for their names to be early on the list of candidates in politics. So with that being said, we heard from McLeod earlier this evening, not necessarily a concession speech, but saying that there's still a lot of work left to do in South Carolina. Our Peyton Lewis is at McLeod's watch party, and she joins us now with the very latest. Peyton.
And Darcy, we confirmed just a few moments ago after that speech that was not a concession speech, that Mia McLeod did call Joe Cunningham and concede the race for governor. She did say it has been a journey so far. She is the first black woman to run for governor in South Carolina. And she said, since her application for governor, it had been a long journey. And today she got here and she was able to shake hands with all of the people that voted for her here at this party in downtown Columbia. But in her speech that she had earlier today, she said that her work is not over for the state of South Carolina.
But what I do know is that we ran one hell of a race. And I know I speak for our entire team when I say we walk by faith and not by sight. And so we will continue, the work continues, regardless of the outcome. I've always said that. The work continues, because South Carolinians are struggling, and we do need real change.
And we talked about it earlier, but McLeod has been a senator in the state since 2017. And she says, although the work isn't done, she will return to session with her and her other senators tomorrow. Reporting live in downtown Columbia, Peyton Lewis, News 19 WLTX.
Peyton, thank you so much. We're going to take a look at a couple of other races, especially those statewide races across South Carolina. So we've already gone over the governor's race. Now we're going to take a look at the attorney general's race, where there was no one running on the Democratic side of that ticket. Alan Wilson walking away with that with 65% of the vote and 89% of the state's precincts reporting. When it comes to the Secretary of State race, Mark Hammond against Keith Blanford. Mark Hammond has been the Secretary of State since 2002, and it looks like he's got 4 more years on the job, with 75.4% of the vote in for him right now. Now, this education superintendent primary on the GOP side and on the Democratic ticket had a number of candidates, no one leaving with 50% of the vote by the end of the night. So that means that there will be a runoff in this race, not only on the GOP side, but also on the Democratic ticket, because again, 89.5% of South Carolina precincts reporting Lisa Ellis in the lead, a very sizable lead, but still not that 50+1 that she needs to claim her spot on the ticket. Ag Commissioner Hugh Weathers has held this position for several years. on the GOP side. There were no contestants on the Democratic side of the ticket, so it looks like Hugh Weathers will hold that position again in the state of South Carolina for at least 4 more years. This is another very interesting race. A lot of political experts did not expect this to be as close as it is. A 3-way tie between these 3 ladies. Catherine Bruce with a lot of support here in the Midlands, Crystal Matthews, a sitting representative from the Low Country, and Angela Jeter. Again, all 3 of these ladies will continue to move forward in 2 weeks for another race, because with 87% of the precincts reporting, it doesn't look like anybody is going to be able to get 50% of the vote tonight. And now we're going to move over to that House race. Tom Rice voted for impeachment for Donald Trump. It looks like this has not fared well for Rice. Russell Fry received the endorsement of the former president, and he has now been called as the winner in this race, where there were, as you can see for yourself, a number of candidates. All right, let me make sure that I have clicked through all of these races. JR, we're going to send things over to you with our insiders, our political experts, to get a closer look at all the races impacting the folks across the Midlands.
All right, Darce, thank you. Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist, Jim Felder, our Democrat strategist tonight. I know early in the evening, Jim, we thought that the Democratic race might be headed to a runoff between Cunningham and McLeod, but that's not the case. Cunningham victorious. And you believe that a little social media spat she got into with Todd Rutherford last week perhaps played a role in this. Explain that.
It did play a role in it. After that spat, it was all downhill for her. I started getting telephone calls from people who saying, "What is this all about? Why is she attacking him, or is he attacking her? They're serving the legislature together. They're both from Richland County. What's this all about?" And from that point on, it just seems like she began to slide. In the fact that she didn't have the kind of money to advertise as Cunningham did, that certainly did not help her.
Cunningham saying tonight this is basically young versus old, going after McMaster's age and his years in political office, Dave.
It's a lot of experience also that he's going to be going up against, because Henry McMaster has served in several roles in South Carolina government. And when you start taking a look at voter turnout, you're almost a 2-to-1 split of Republicans versus Democrats showing up in these primaries. I mean, we took a look at the numbers a little while ago, and more than with 83% of the precincts reporting, we had 48,000 people who had voted thus far. The guesstimate is going to be somewhere around 550,000. Maybe. But that's a 17% turnout. That means 1 out of 6 voters in South Carolina turned out, but they turned out 2-to-1 for Henry McMaster and the Republican races over the Democratic races. And so I think Henry McMaster, in a state like South Carolina, there's going to have to be a lot of contentious fighting going on in that old versus young debate that Joe Cunningham's already shot the first firing shots to be able to do so.
And Jim, voter turnout, why do you think it was so low?
Well, several things. Number one, people not knowing who the candidates were. They just didn't see enough. I don't know if we had a lens wide enough for everybody to get to the candidates. And there was not a lot of activity. It was whoever got their little area. But I still think we need to do more about advising the public of how the process works and who the candidates are and where you can get the information from other than through the candidates themselves. I still say that sample ballots is still a way to go, and of course they're available. But the older generation just can't access the technology to get the information, and so that doesn't help. On the other hand, Cunningham really tapped into the youth in his campaign, and it worked. It turned out. On the other hand, Mia was going after the older population, and that didn't work for her. They couldn't get him out.
All right, as we move forward now, what can we expect between now and November, especially in the race for governor? Are we going to see this thing get heated at times, guys?
I'm certain that it will get heated. Joe Cunningham already lobbed several firing salvos across the way there, across the bow, because he was basically making this an old versus young. You listen to his debate that he had when the Democrats debated last week. It was that old versus young. He is going to play the old versus young card because he said tonight, I am now 40 years old, and that's how long Henry McMaster has been involved in politics.
There's some changes about at the State House, though, as well. So briefly tell me what's going on there. A lot of faces who have been at the State House for a number of years could be not there when the legislature come back in January, right?
There were several key races. There were 33 contested incumbent races in the South Carolina House. Keep in mind, the Senate is not up for election this year, so you had 124 House seats that were up. That is nearly 1 out of 4 House seats that were challenged incumbents. That doesn't even count the folks who retired. There could easily be 20 to 25% of new membership coming into the House. You pair that with the fact that you've now got Speaker Merle Smith from Sumter, and you've got new leadership coming into play. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the State House dynamics start to play themselves out next year.
And quickly, Jim, he mentions new membership. You think the South Carolina voters are looking for some new leaders right now?
I think so. You reach a point where you say the incumbents are not doing enough. They're not talking about pocketbook issues that affect us. And as a result, say, well, let's throw the rascals out and try a new breed. And I see that happening this time around.
All right, we've been covering this throughout the evening. Dave, Jim, thank you so much for your time. Your expertise. We have much more for you right now on today's primary results on our website, WLTX.com, and the News 19 mobile app. Weather-wise, some early rain. Temperatures warming up in some areas of the Midlands today, Efren, but it didn't stop voters from showing up.
Yeah, fortunately that the rain didn't last that long. Now, officially at Columbia Metropolitan Airport, we did receive just a little bit over half an inch of rain after we started a low of 74 and reached a high of 90. Now, it's still very humid under overcast skies, but it's currently 77 degrees in the capital city. Now, our forecast in the morning, we're going to start off at 78 degrees. Will be mostly sunny, turning partly cloudy throughout the morning. By 10 o'clock, we're already at 90 degrees. We're expected to hit a high of 101 with a heat index of 110. But late in the afternoon into the evening, some of us might be dealing with some more thunderstorms. We'll take a look at that track and the forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Efren, thank you so much. Stay with us, folks. There's more News 19 at 11 coming up after this short break.
Nancy Mace holds on for a victory there against Katie Arrington. Arrington was the Trump-backed candidate, but Trump's endorsement not working in that district tonight. Nancy Mace, the incumbent, backed by former Governor Nikki Haley, she wins there. As Darcy mentioned earlier in the broadcast, a split decision for Trump tonight because Tom Rice is voted out in the 7th Congressional District. Russell Fry wins the Republican nomination there. Again, we have much more on the primary results on our website, WLTX.com. Darcy?
In other news today, the Richland 2 school board members talk safety and security. News 19's Eleanor Tabone listened into the meeting and has that story.
Safety is a big issue for all of us.
Like many other school districts across the Midlands, Richland 2 is working to increase security across district schools.
That included things such as possibility of metal detectors, clear bag policies, and a few other ideas that we need to consider.
Vice Chairman James Manning saying an open gate metal detector pilot program was conducted at randomly selected schools. According to the district, 4 employees will be needed to operate each detector.
Open gate metal detectors to give us an idea of what would be some challenges in implementing the metal detectors at the high school.
Each metal detector set to cost the district $13,000 each.
There's a lot of nuances that go into it. Do we need additional staff? If we do, what's the cost? What are the procedures once you identify some sort of issue?
The district also want to install door alarms, a crisis alert system, a clear bag policy for all students, and more student resource officers.
I think it's important because we have to get it right.
Eleanor Tabone, News 19 WLTX.
Chair Manning, the district wants new safety measures implemented before the new school year, but could not say which measures it will be just yet. The full board must vote and approve all the safety recommendations before anything is implemented.
Noticeable difference right now in the weather currently throughout our Midland communities. It's still very warm, it's still very muggy. Now, for what it's worth, the air temperatures are in the mid to upper 70s, but what it actually feels like in some of our Midland communities, the heat index right now, it feels like 90 degrees in St. Matthews. It feels like 86 in Saluda and 85 in Bishopville. Other areas in the tri-state feel much worse, with heat indexes still near 100 degrees. That's because we still have a lot of moisture in place, not a lot of flow in air, but we're watching this cold front that's coming in from northeastern North Carolina, and it's going to swing through the state, rolling right through I-20 from Florence all the way down to Aiken County. So in the morning, we'll start with mostly clear skies, but then we'll start increasing cloud coverage by midday. Computer models indicating showers and storms develop in the low country, but all of this is going to swing in the same way we had today. And into the late afternoon, early evening, some of this convection may actually move into the western Midlands and the upstate, and then into Wednesday night. Now, most of the models indicate that the storms will be prevalent in the upstate, but we can't rule out from Fairfield all the way to Aiken County, basically along and north of I-20 going into Wednesday night. But that's the only appreciable rainfall we're expecting. But keep in mind that there is a slight risk for severe weather from parts of the upstate and the western Midlands, and then maybe strong storms in the central portions of our Midland communities. So overnight tonight, low temperatures expected in the mid to upper 70s with a few low 80s. Highs tomorrow expected to get into the 100s for the most part. Whether it rains or not, the humidity is going to be the biggest factor because we're going to be dealing with that humidity. And speaking of humidity, we're watching a tropical storm, and that'll be heading our way. Bottom line is that our weather is going to stay hot for the next several days. We'll be back right after this break.
series. This program aims to both educate participants about keeping stormwater clean while providing a fun outdoor activity. It's made up of 3 locations in the Columbia area. Those who visit all 3 are eligible to win an award courtesy of Richland County Stormwater Management. If you're interested in learning more, you can find information on Richland County's website. Final check on the forecast when we come back.
Well, get ready because we're doing it all over again. In the morning, mostly clear skies, a low of 78. It's going to be ugly humid again. And tomorrow we're looking at a high of 101 with the potential heat index of 110. Now again, some of us late in the afternoon into the early evening may see some thunderstorms, but it's going to be few and far between for the Midlands. And then tomorrow night, partly cloudy with a low of 76. And if you look in the upper right, we're supposed to have a low of 68 and a high of 89 for the average. Yeah, no.
Not so much.
No.
We traded in Reggie, got Darcy.
You upgraded. This is what you call an upgrade, my friend.
It is an upgrade. But
It is an upgrade.
You drove in a vehicle, not in a moped.
I do not own a moped.
And at least you're not wearing shorts.
I am not wearing shorts.
We'll leave it at that. All right, that's the news. Have a good night.
Sure.
Thank you for watching News 19. Did you see a story you loved? Download WLTX on your Roku or Amazon Fire device and watch it again right now.